8,719. That's the total number of people booked under UAPA in just 8 years. That's between 2014 and 2022. Professor GN Saibaba was one of them. For 10 years, he was kept in solitary confinement. You'd imagine that to jail somebody like Professor Saibaba for so long, they must have had a lot of evidence against him, right? Well, bananas, umbrellas, newspapers, and supposed Maoist literature was the bulk of the evidence against him. And the witness? An illiterate barber who had no idea what he was signing on. Professor Saibaba's death has raised questions on how jails mistreat people in India, how courts are complicit in denying justice. But what I want to focus on this week is on a third aspect: the blatant abuse of power by police and governments, where evidence and witnesses are fabricated and manipulated. If you've been watching news channels the last 10 years, you would have seen how many activists, scholars, and even journalists have been called names: Maoists, Naxals, terrorists, etc. But if you watch their reporting closely, you'll realize that they're rarely talking about facts of the case and they're just being somebody else's puppets. How many people have been demonized like this? Is this really journalism? You know, if it wasn't so wild, it would be really funny. But if you're really tired of propaganda and lies on news channels, then do support independent outlets like the News Minute and the Newslaundry. Over 8,700 people were booked under the draconian UAPA in just 8 years. And we don't even know the numbers for 2023, as the union government always delays publishing the NCRB data. Of this, 2.5% have been convicted and 6.5% have been acquitted. A majority of the rest, we can assume, are mostly in jail, as getting bail in UAPA cases is quite difficult. Their trials have either not begun or are getting delayed. GN Saibaba was arrested for alleged links to Maoist rebels, this despite him being wheelchair-bound because of polio. He was a former English professor at the Delhi University, a human rights activist who worked extensively with marginalized tribal communities. In 2017, he was convicted under UAPA and sentenced to life in prison. In 2022, the Bombay High Court acquitted him, but the Supreme Court the very next day stayed the acquittal. Can you imagine? The court opened on a Saturday to stay his acquittal. Then finally, in May 2024, he was released after he was acquitted for the second time. But here's the thing. In his case, there was a clear manipulation of evidence. This was a case largely based on seizures made from his house in Delhi. But guess who the Maharashtra police, under the then Congress government, took as witness? An illiterate barber named Jagat Bhole. During the cross-examination, the barber admitted he didn't even know what a hard disk was and couldn't tell a CD from a DVD. The court asked prosecution why the police chose him despite having many educated witnesses in the university housing complex. The court clearly said that the raid itself was not free from suspicion. Then it gets more interesting. The court found both Saibaba and the witness were made to stand outside the house during the raid. This means the witness never saw if the evidence was found or just planted. Although the police claimed that the search was recorded on video, no footage was presented in court. To top it all off, the electronic devices were not properly sealed or labeled. This means one can't tell if the hard disks submitted in court were the same ones from Saibaba's house. Manipulated evidence in UAPA is not limited to Saibaba's case alone. Remember Father Stan Swamy? He was a priest and a tribal rights activist, and also happens to be the oldest person in India accused of terrorism. He was 83 when he was arrested in 2020. The NIA claimed that Stan Swamy was part of a conspiracy to instigate riots in the village of Bhima Koregaon in Maharashtra. He was arrested along with 15 others and accused of having links with the banned CPI Maoist party. The NIA also claimed they found digital evidences from Stan Swamy's computer, including emails and letters discussing violence, procuring weapons, and raising funds for Maoist activities. Stan Swamy consistently denied these charges, arguing that the evidence was planted. US forensic firm Arsenal Consulting confirmed that malware had been used to plant incriminating documents on Stan Swamy's computer, including those cited by the NIA. Their report revealed that his device had been compromised for years, raising serious doubts about the authenticity of the evidence. Meanwhile, the courts refused to grant bail to Stan Swamy, who was also suffering from Parkinson's disease. He'd requested for a straw and a sipper because his advanced disease made it difficult for him to drink water. Even this was denied to him. It took NIA almost 40 days and a court intervention for him to get that sipper. But at the same time, we see visuals of VIP inmates like actor Darshan enjoying all the luxuries in the world inside jail. Stan Swamy died in a hospital in Mumbai, never managing to get bail till the end. In the Bhima Koregaon case, there are more instances where evidence was allegedly planted. Arsenal Consulting found that human rights activist Rona Wilson's computer was compromised for 22 months. The NIA had used letters written to and from Rona to other Maoists as evidence. And Arsenal had found that at least 10 such letters were planted on his computer. They also found Israeli spyware Pegasus was installed on Rona's phone at least a year before his arrest. It's well known that the Israeli firm NSO Group sells Pegasus only to governments. The cases with fabricated evidences don't end there. Siddique Kappan, a Malayali journalist, was arrested in 2020 when he was on his way to Hathras to report on the alleged gang rape of a Dalit woman. He was later charged with UAPA and accused of planning to incite communal violence. And what was the evidence against him? His reports on communal violence. Yes, you actually heard that right. The Uttar Pradesh police claimed that his reports on communal incidents amounts to communal reporting. The police cited 36 articles by Kappan on things like anti-CAA protests, the Nizamuddin Markaz conference, the Northeast Delhi riots, and said that these were to incite Muslims. We have gone through these articles and found that most of them were just routine news articles or interviews. Then there was the matter of the pamphlets. Listen to what Siddique Kappan had said in an interview a few months ago on the evidence planted and manipulated in his case.
ये पूरा अमेरिकन इंग्लिश में एक टूल किट, मतलब उधर ब्लैक लाइव मैटर्स का पैम्लेट था, वो मेरा गाड़ी से वो बताया ये गाड़ी से बरामद हुआ। मेरा चार्जशीट पड़ेगा तो मुझे, मतलब एक अच्छा जज का सामने मेरा चार्जशीट एक जज पड़ेगा तो मुझे बरी मिलेगा। उस टाइम इतना fabricated चार्जशीट है मेरा।
Kappan is now out on bail, but the trial against him can go on for many years. The process itself is the punishment. In a lot of UAPA cases, apart from manipulating or even fabricating evidence, authorities go after people for just books found in their houses. All these investigative agencies have actually criminalized reading books. There's no other way to describe it. In the charge sheet against Vernon Gonzalez, an activist who was arrested in the Bhima Koregaon case, many books were included as evidence. In fact, Bombay High Court Judge Sarang Kotwal went on to ask why Gonzalez kept objectionable literature like Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. Gonzalez also had the Marathi book Saheb Amla Dusra Desh Diya, which means Saheb, give us a different country. All of this was recorded as evidence. Dalit scholar and activist Satyanarayana, whose residence was also raided in connection with the Bhima Koregaon case, said that the police asked him why he had books on Mao and Marx. He, by the way, is the son-in-law of Telugu poet and activist Varavara Rao, who is another accused in the Bhima Koregaon case. In Kerala, the CPIM government came under fire for arresting two students, Alan Shuhaib and Taha Fazil. In this case, two books were part of the evidence. Rahul Pandita's Hello Bastar, a book about a former Naxal leader, a pamphlet encouraging Indonesians to rise against their rulers, writings in support of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and a note calling for the demolition of illegal apartments in Kochi. In the case against Adivasi journalism student Vithala Malekudia in Karnataka, the anti-Naxal force claimed he was linked to the Communist Party of India, ML. And again, the evidence was literature. environmental pamphlets, newspaper clippings about Naxals, and a book on Bhagat Singh. Despite lacking any incriminating evidence, Vittala faced sedition charges. In almost all these cases, courts have said that books, slogans, diary entries are not evidence for UAPA charges without actual acts of violence or instigation. The mere possession of any kind of literature is not a crime, unless it is a banned book. Nor does it mean that you subscribe to or support any ideology. Listen to what human rights lawyer Mihir Desai said in this interview.
Just because I have Mein Kampf doesn't mean I am a votary of Hitler. And just because I have Das Kapital doesn't mean I am necessarily a votary of Karl Marx. So unless that particular material is banned, okay, unless that book is banned, how can you charge me with... And you see, academia, especially for academicians, for journalists, etc., you would be accessing all kinds of material. That doesn't mean you actually believe in that.
There are also other bizarre pieces of evidence prosecution has come up with in UAPA cases. Let's go back to Saibaba's case. There are 4 other co-accused in the case, including Pandu Narote and Prashant Rahi. The prosecution used an article by a journalist who said she was carrying an umbrella, a banana, and a newspaper when she went to meet Maoists for an interview. So the prosecution pointed out that Pandu Narote had an umbrella with him, and this in August in the middle of a rainy season. Prashant Rahi was found with newspaper clippings. Despite the lack of solid evidence, 5 people, including Saibaba, were kept in jail for long periods of time. Saibaba, a man who was 90% disabled, was kept in the notorious Anda jail in Nagpur prison. This means solitary confinement and there's no roof on top. The inmate gets exposed to the harsh 50 degrees in summer and the bitter cold in winter. The prosecution could not even establish that he was a flight risk, but still he was put in the cell where, in Saibaba's own words, nobody had been kept for 90 years. Pandu Narote died because he was not properly treated for swine flu. He was just 32 years old at the time, and he did not even live to see the court's verdict that came months later that pronounced that he was not guilty. The cases I mentioned are just a few in the long list of UAPA accused who are languishing in jails across India. We are aware of the loopholes in these cases because they have been widely reported in the media. But what about others? I'm not saying everybody might be innocent, but UAPA clearly has no place in our society, and there are enough provisions to deal with other illegal activities. But you know what disturbs me the most? It's how public opinion is shaped against these political prisoners by a section of the media. They branded terrorists, urban Naxals, and whatnot. Their cases are distorted, and facts notwithstanding, they're demonized. And after long legal battles, even those who manage to get acquitted are still vilified. If you want to stop this process, what you can do is share videos like these with your friends, families, and colleagues. Any factual reporting you find on UAPA must be spoken about, must be shared. Do write to me at pooja@thenewsminute.com and tell me what you think of this. Not just these cases, but the big question that we want to ask today: whether UAPA has place in a democracy like India.